Hey, welcome everybody. It's Wednesday and it's time for another episode of the Leadership Toolkit. As you know, this is your definitive leadership growth podcast. And I have awesome people on from all over the world, all different verticals of business. We talk about wins, we talk about losses, successes, failures. What do you need to do to win? What do you need to do to avoid running into that wall that might be coming up on you? So I have got amazing guests every single week. I would love for you to make sure and participate with us. If you're in sitting watching the show or listening to the show, please feel free to drop comments or questions. Today is absolutely going to be awesome because this is the first time I've got a judge on the show. I've got Judge Frank Szymanski. Judge Frank is his mission is to generate a revolution in consciousness. And one of the things that he realizes is if you don't feel like you, it's not because you don't know. It could be because you don't know who you are. So he's written a book called Identity Design, and he trains leaders. He trains business professionals. He's been a judge in excess of 20 years in juvenile court. So he's probably got all kinds of crazy stories. And I'm excited to welcome him on the show today. So Judge Frank, welcome to the Leadership Toolkit. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and have this conversation.
Yeah, great to be here. And I want to thank you that you're running this program to help people with leadership issues. We've all got leadership issues, even if it's just leading ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, if you would take a few minutes here, Judge Frank, and just share with the audience sort of what is your background? Where did all this get started? How did you go from being where you started to being a juvenile judge and to now consulting and teaching leaders and business people and authoring the Identity Design book? So if you would give us 30 years of progress here in like 3 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, wow. It's really been a journey, as it is for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
And I tell people I came from two wonderful parents together. They were together till they died, Polish Catholic Americans. They raised 7 children. We all went to college. And, I had a private practice. I became an attorney. I taught school for a few years, and then I became an attorney, had private practice. And then eventually I ran for judge and was elected. Thanking to the good people of Wayne County in Michigan to Detroit to express their support for me to serve in this position. And I got to tell you, becoming a juvenile court judge in Detroit, I consider that to be the real beginning of the education of Frank Szymanski, because you hear these incredible stories of trauma and challenge that young people have, and it's tough hearing what some of these kids are dealing with and it reminds me that I basically, look, I had the golden ticket, 2 wonderful parents, and I never had to worry where my next meal was coming from or where I was going to sleep at night. So that led to me, I listened to these stories, and it wasn't just the children in my courtroom, it was also the parents and all the trauma and the challenges, and which mostly, much of it comes from really poor choices. And I said to myself, geez, I would like to write something to give people to serve as a guidepost for personal development. And I know there's a lot of great books out there on personal development. I just, really enjoyed, I spent 2.5 years researching and writing mine, Identity Design, which is this book right here. And I learned a lot. I tell people, if you get half of, or even a quarter of what I got out of writing the book by reading it, I think you're going to enjoy some real personal growth. So that really, and I always had, even before I became a judge, I always had a real deep interest in personal development. I wanted to, you see those be all you can be. I'm one of those attempt to be all you can be kind of guys. And so Yeah. And as part of hearing these stories, the one thing, the first year or two I was on the bench, the thing that came to my mind most was I kept thinking of one word: peace. These people that are in my courtroom, they need some peace. Their lives are so traumatic and so chaotic because of the choices that they're making and the circumstances that they're in, that we really need to help them. And I had a yoga practice at that point. I started by promoting that, and then I learned more about meditation. I brought in Transcendental Meditation teachers, to work with our youth. They've had a great response to that. I promote visualization, mindfulness. There's a great program out of a company out of Florida, has this Inner Explorer program. I've been working with them to promote their work. They've been very successful in schools, getting test scores to go up and discipline issues to go down and teacher burnout to go down. So look, my view is we're all here to save the world one way or another. And my role in that is to promote these kinds of messages, because I know, and I just did a presentation over the weekend. I know that everybody that I can convince that we need to train our minds. We need to do something for our minds on a daily basis. Once people get that message and they really get connected with that, I really feel that the world becomes a better place, a more peaceful and more productive place.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with you. So a couple questions. Do you remember, because one of the things I want to explore is you have such a unique perspective when you're talking about the juvenile court stuff and you're saying, hey, my first year or two on the bench, was there a turning point? Do you remember, and obviously without naming names, like, was there a specific case or cases? Because I know I'm sure there was stuff that came in and it was sort of quote unquote run of the mill, right? You're like, okay, hey, this guy's a bonehead, and here's here's the decision you made, and because of that, here's the circumstance. But is there, something from that first year, or was it 10 years in, that really stood out, that was sort of a turning point in your mind to say, man, something's got to change?
So I'm not going to say that there was one particular case, but I have to tell you that there's like three things that we see, and it's one, two, or three of these things.
Okay.
Kids and their parents either addicted to drugs, or serious domestic violence issues, or um, let's see, you got the drug addiction, you got the domestic violence issues, and an untreated mental illness or improperly treated mental illness. Those kinds of things, they're just there all the time. And like I said, I didn't experience any of this. So when I have somebody in my courtroom and there, or a family there, and there's usually at least one of those issues is present, and sometimes it's all three, and I'm sure there's a couple more, but those are like main things. And then and I've learned so much about adolescent brain development, that we recognize that young people, they don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. It takes really till the mid-20s.
Right. I was going to say sometimes older people too.
Right.
Still working on it.
Yeah. So really, it was recognizing that these kinds of factors are showing up in pretty much all of my cases. And so my view of this was, well, now we got to work to try to level the playing field. This family, or this young man or young woman in my court, they don't have what I had. And so, what can I do to help them? And the biggest thing that we can do, of course, we can, connect them with a real positive mentor. That's a huge, there's no question that the research shows that's a great anecdote for really a traumatic upbringing and a lot of trauma. But the other thing is to develop a personal stress management practice. And that's what, when I teach people how to meditate and how to use visualization and use mindfulness, these are things that I like to call it. I just came up with this phrase. I'm a wordsmith because I write songs too when I'm not doing. And I call it self-propelled stress management.
Self-propelled stress management. Okay.
Yeah, because when you learn these techniques and you practice them every day, you're not as stressed out as otherwise. I've had a daily meditation practice for over 15 years, and I don't know where I would be without it. It has helped solve so many issues in my life, and I'm not chasing a lot of things that I now understand don't really matter. And one of the things that I do in identity design, I ask people to come up with a one sentence definition, and it's sort of can be seen as a mission statement, I suppose, in some ways. And my statement is, is that I am a spiritual power source created by God to help others live the life of their dreams. So it's a very empowering way, I think, to look at yourself if you're, created by God and you're a spiritual power source. And obviously, I'm not, I don't want to slight anybody who doesn't believe in God. I mean, obviously, there are lots of ways to look at the world and our place in this world. That just happens to be a personal belief of mine. But one of the things I always ask people to do, and I asked people to do this at my presentation the other day, I said, we really need to examine what our beliefs are and examine if that's a belief that empowers us or disempowers us. And we obviously, we want to load up on the empowering beliefs,
right,
and cut the weed, cut the weed out, cut the chaff, whatever the expression is of the disempowering beliefs.
So let me pause you right here for a second, because I want to go back to something you said, and I've got a whole list of stuff now. I sit and take notes as my guests speak, and now I have a whole list of stuff to ask you that is not even on the list of the email exchange. So here's one of the things, because you said, okay, well, there are 3 things that were heavily affecting youth, and you shared those with us, and you said one thing that can be a major factor in changing their lives, and I believe this is a major factor in changing anybody's life, business people and everyone else, is to have a positive mentor. Can you expand on, first off, can you share with me what would your definition of a mentor be? And if somebody is looking for one, because I think that applies in leadership and in business, and I know that's just a fleeting moment when you're saying, hey, if they had a positive mentor, but I hang on some things like that. So can you describe for me what is that? And then what are a couple or 3 maybe characteristics that someone should look for if they're looking for a mentor? That would be, a common thread, because I understand different and unique personalities might need different things, but what would be some common threads in there that you would recommend people look for in those situations?
Well, yeah, I like that. So I think, first of all, you need somebody that can listen. All right. And that's one thing I really try to do in my courtroom. And I've been told that people think I'm a good listener, but really you need somebody who's going to listen, not, and I always love it when I get young people talking to me about their issues, because if I don't understand what their issues are, then I'm just, I'm just running a script, or,
Sure.
that's just not, that's not helpful. So you need somebody who's a good listener, and you need somebody that you have some respect for. All right. Because if you don't respect them, well, how are you gonna feel about whatever they tell you? All right. And I would hope you'd be able to find somebody who has some level of success in their life. All right. And now that doesn't mean that they're living in a big house or anything. In fact, one of the things I tell people all the time is this whole materialist world that we live in, it's a bunch of garbage. I mean, we really need to recognize that, it's not how big your house is or what kind of phone you have or how fancy your clothes are or your car. It's really, when one of the things I do in identity design and I talk to people about, I say, let's think about the end in mind. When their tombstone is there, when we have when we're gone,
Yep.
what are people going to remember us for? And the only thing that really is going to matter is, what did you do to help somebody else along? So that's become, my mission. And it's through messaging and sharing these things. But there are lots of ways you can, I mean, people that work in the healthcare field, they're helping somebody every day. People who are educators, they're helping people every day. People who are firefighters or law enforcement. When you do your job well, you are helping people to, you're helping people and you're helping society. And so those would be things that I think I would look for in a mentor, and a spirit. I would say this too, a spirit of generosity, because somebody who's generous is somebody who, well, let's face it, by definition, they have something to give, right?
Right.
So I think those are things that I would be looking for.
That's wonderful. I came up with 4 things. I always like to recap this because especially if people are listening, maybe on Spotify or Amazon, or iTunes later and so forth. I want to recap. I picked up 4 things that Frank said on the question, like, okay, well, what makes a positive mentor? What's the common thread? He said, 1, somebody that listens, I think super valuable, very, very valuable, and listens to hear what it is that you're sharing, not just to get through the conversation. You said someone that you have respect for. I think that's very valuable as well. Certainly, sometimes you go through this stuff and you think, well, that could go without saying. But the reality is, part of the reason that we say it is because of like your background and experience. It's like, okay, well, I want to bring this to the forefront because you need to be aware of it. So someone that you have respect for, someone that has a level of success in their life. That's one of those where I think it could be that easily can. And I'm going to add to what you shared, and hopefully this is okay. Someone that has success in life at what you want to succeed at, right? Because if you look at it and say, hey, I want to, some people do measure success based on, dollars. And that's one way you can measure it. Some may measure it based on time. Some may measure it based on you're having a loving family or being able to make it to church every Sunday or being able to contribute. So someone that has success in their life with something that you want to go after. And then I love the 4th one, with your spirit of generosity, where they have something to give. I think that's super, super powerful. One thing I want to point out, especially if people are listening on the audio version, you can make sure and connect with Frank on LinkedIn. It's Judge Frank Szymanski, and I'm going to spell that for you. Well, Judge Frank, common spelling. Judge Frank Szymanski is Szymanski. So you can connect with him on LinkedIn there. If you look him up under that, he comes right up. Also, you can check out judgefrank.com, JUDGEFRANK.com, and you can start your consciousness revolution. And yes, when you tune in there, I'm going to touch on this because I'm pitching your website right now. You will see Judge Frank as his David Bowie tribute act. Bowie's alive. So can you expand on that for us? How did you find that? I know we're shifting gears here for a second, but how did you start doing this David Bowie tribute act? And you've been writing music also for 30, 40 plus years, right?
Yeah. I got to tell you, I've always loved music, and I saw David Bowie perform live, and I was like, oh, that is cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought what he did, his whole theatrical approach, I think it's awesome. And, when I do my speaking work, I warn people that if you hire me to come in and talk to your company or your conference, whatever, you're getting a cross between Tony Robbins and David Bowie.
Nice.
So it's yeah, no, I just thought he's the most interesting and certainly one of the most influential artists there is. I love his music. I love doing his songs. I was in original bands trying to be the next David Bowie. I finally gave up and said, I'm just going to pretend to be the first David Bowie.
That works.
So, yeah. So I have a lot of fun with that. And I tell people, when I perform these songs as David Bowie, and it's a tribute act. So, I have the wig and the fancy suit and the whole deal.
Right.
And I tell people that I feel like he wrote these songs so that I could sing them because he's got all this kind of campy type stuff. And I just love that stuff. I'm still a kid at heart. I
can see
never
that.
grew up really. I mean, I did in some ways, I suppose, because I did get a law degree and get elected as a juvenile court judge. But spirit wise, and I have a chapter in my book on this too. I call it the kid identity. And it's all about how important it is for us to stay in touch with that little child within, and sometimes that child may have a British accent.
No, that's fun. So let me one of the things I think that's really fun when you talk about identity design, I mean, that's part of who you are, right? And so you're able to navigate that or write on that in the book and so forth. And I do want to go back to the book for just a second. I would encourage people, again, I'll flash this on the screen, but go to judgefrank.com. I have on here, go to judgefrank.com, connect and start your consciousness revolution. Frank's showing the book there, Identity Design. You can buy it anywhere that books are sold. I imagine Amazon and barnesandnoble.com and so forth. But one of the things that you pointed out was you said, hey, when I was at the very top of the show, you said, I hope people get as much out of reading this book as I did out of writing it. How did writing this book shift your perspective? And then, can you give us some tidbits of, hey, look, what are some tangible things that I might pull out of the book? Just a couple or three things, just the teasers, if you will, for people to start really getting the life that they want.
All right. So, we're on the Leadership Toolkit.
Yes.
And everything I've talked about in terms of, visualization, meditation, those are tools. Those are just tools. And I tell people, when I recommend that they meditate, I say, I'm not asking you to join a religion or anything. These are tools. I know Catholic priests that practice mantra meditation, so yeah, they're definitely tools. And yeah, let me give you a couple of things from the book. So one of the things I like to talk about for leaders is I like to talk about something that I call blame ball. All right. And if you think about any sport, whether it's football or basketball or soccer, lacrosse, I ask people, well, what do you have to do to win the game, to be successful at these sports? And you have to control something. What do you have to control? And you could say, well, you got to control your emotions or this or that. But strategically, you've always got to control the ball. All right.
Yep.
If you control the ball in basketball or football or soccer, you're setting yourself up to win.
Sure.
And it's the same thing I tell people, and I've done presentations with I did it for a gym full of kids at the juvenile detention facility. And I had a soccer ball, and it had on the, my son's soccer ball, I taped on this blame label on it. And I said, so think about this. This is the blame. Okay. And what happens if I don't get like an A in math, and that's something that I wanted, and I wanted to, blame my teacher, and I would throw the ball to someone in the audience, and I'd say, now, if I blame my teacher, you know, Andrew here, who I've just thrown the ball, is the teacher. I said,
Sure.
well, who's controlling the ball now? Well, I'm not controlling it anymore. I just gave it to somebody else.
Right.
So, you know, when you want to pass out blame for all these things, it's really it's not empowering, because you're saying, well, it's not up to me, it's up to somebody else. But really, you know, so blame gets a lot of it, you know, let's face it, it has a negative connotation, but it's really about responsibility. And I tell people that a sense of responsibility is one of the ultimate superpowers in life, because when you feel responsible for something, you have power. And that's the way it goes. And one other thing, let me, you know, and share another concept from the book that I came up with this idea when I was writing the book, and it really has really changed me.
Sure.
It's something I call the 760 Mad Minute Plan.
Okay.
And the name for that came from my daughter. When she was in school, she would have these math. This was third grade. They did what they call mad minutes. They were given a set of math problems, and they had 5 minutes, and they had to do as much of that correctly as they could in that time.
Oh yeah.
So so it's a question of concentration on one single-minded concept for a short time. And so I have in the book a list of a weekly schedule. And for example, Monday is service day. So you want to spend 1 minute, and it's just a minute. This is 1 minute. This is personal development for busy people. You spend 1 minute where you focus on making somebody else's life better. All right. However you can do that. And a lot of times it really is just acknowledging somebody, not for their fancy clothes or their way their hair looks or something, but for something that they've done. And ideally, even something they've done for somebody else, or some achievement that they've made, something that they've accomplished. And I got to tell you something. I promise you, you know, and the whole schedule is in the book. I promise you, you do this for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 1 minute a day, 1 minute a day. It will change you. It will change you. I have there's the challenge minute. There's the ownership minute. There's, you know, so I have these different, like I say, a schedule through the week. It'll take you through that. And it really, because the thing is, most of us, you know, we're just always reacting to our environment. But when you do this, it's like you are putting the focus on very important concepts for personal development. You're making sure every week, when it gets to this day, this is what you're spending some time thinking about. And it's great. It's really worked for me.
No, I love that. Well, I mean, it's something that's simple, because anybody can do anything for a minute. You can do anything for a minute, right? And I remember it takes me back to a place. I had a mentor of mine, and I was trying to do this military diet. And you know, there's specifics. They break down, here's what you do each day. You get these 3 crackers, you get this, and so forth. But I remember him saying to me, he goes, well, how are you going to, you know, that's not very much food. It's not very much this. How do you know you can stick to it? And I was like, look, anybody can do anything for 3 days. So you're breaking it down even smaller than that. Is it's like, okay, you can do anything for a minute. And if you break it down for 7 days a week, that's how you start to form habits. That's how you start to form consistency. The side note for that, what I'm hearing, Frank, is like and people that are listening to the show, I want you to hear this and write it down. So one, get the book Identity Design by Frank Szymanski. Look, I would look up this part. You said it's the 760 Mad Minute Plan, personal transformation for busy people, right?
Yep.
So be deliberate in finding that piece, that chapter, that activity. Because one of the other things that starts to happen, and this is so simple, and we've talked about this on many of the shows of the Leadership Toolkit when it comes to prayer and meditation and all of these different things, you will start to wire your brain differently, because you will start to believe in 1 minute a day what you're telling yourself. That's one of the things that I'm hearing, Frank, because you're like, hey, it's not hard, just do this for a minute. Well, then you're going to start to wire yourself. And so when it comes to mindset and how we speak to ourselves, and you touched on that earlier, is what are our beliefs? Like what's empowering to us, what's disempowering to us, what's breaking us down. And so if you are fine tuned, and you said you have a whole schedule in there for these,
Yep.
just do it a minute a day. Like that's massively powerful. So, do you have anything you want to add on that before
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to tell you this. It
Yeah.
doesn't even take a minute. Okay.
Don't spoil
sometimes
that.
when I was doing this, I would like in 30 seconds, you can cycle your mind. Let me give you an example. Okay.
Sure,
So
sure.
one of the things that I think helped me the most is Wednesday. I have Tuesday's gratitude day. Wednesday is challenge day. Okay.
Okay.
And challenge day, you can cycle through a challenge that you're currently facing, and just but even before you get to that, you can focus on just spend a few seconds and think about a challenge that you had, that you came through, that you dealt with. For example, I went to law school. I had to pass the bar exam. When I became a singer, I had to, I studied classical voice. It was really challenging to learn. I was not a natural vocalist. I've had people tell me, wow, that heard me when I was in my early, in my more less celebrated performances, and they said, wow, you really learned how to use your voice. So the thing is, I can always, whatever challenge comes up to me now, I can say, well, that's not going to be as hard as, when I had to learn how to sing, or I had to go to law school for 3 years and I had to pass the bar exam. So it's great to recognize challenges that we've faced and that we've dealt with successful. I don't care who's listening. Everybody has something like what I just said. Okay. They met some challenge. And when you remind yourself of that, and then you have to remember also, challenges, they're just opportunities. Okay. All the great personal development coaches, they'll all say that. Okay. But most of us will say, well, it's easy for you to say, challenges are a headache. They're a pain in the ass. It's life is a struggle and everything else.
Sure.
But when you do this, but I'm telling you, if you actually do this little challenge, Wednesday thing that I'm talking about, in a few months, you're going to start talking like that too. And it works. It really works.
No, absolutely. So speaking of talking to ourselves and shifting mindsets and so forth, one of the things that you suggested, and you mentioned this at again, top of the show, I still have all these notes written down. So
Okay.
we're going to keep going this way. This is my audience knows, listen, we just go where my brain goes. So
Sure.
One of the things that you commented on was being able to lead yourself. And we're just right as we got started in the leadership toolkit, and you said, yep, you got to be able to lead yourself. Well, one of the comments that you had made when we were making our exchange, you said, well, leadership always starts from the inside. So we have to, train our minds and so forth. Can you expand on that some? What are some of the things that you do? And maybe it's some of the things we've already talked about. But when you say you got to lead yourself first, and I've had many people say that, and some people, when I ask them, well, what does it mean to lead yourself, have great definitions, and some of them leave us wondering. And so I'm curious, when you say it, Judge Frank, when you say you got to lead yourself first, can you expand on that statement for me?
So what worked for me, what's been very, very helpful for me, is to think about, my sense of purpose. And I gave that one sentence, definition. And once I really got connected with that, it really got me to recognizing there's things that matter and there's things that just don't matter. And I realized that I spent most of my life, until I, really kind of started, with my meditation practice, and I wrote this book and these different things. I got to be honest, I spent most of my life worrying, about things that didn't really matter.
Sure.
So for me, leading from, from working from the inside out is just working from the inside out to understand yourself and what does really matter. And I got to tell you, this daily meditation practice that I've had has been, just a godsend in terms of me recognizing what is important and being able to lead myself and to be comfortable with myself and to recognize and the one thing I love about this practice and promoting it is that it really makes you more compassionate. It really makes you care about other people more than yourself. And that's the
Mm.
sign of a good leader. A good leader is really more worried about, what kind of results and outcomes can I get for the people that work with me or for me, uh, as opposed to, what am I getting out of this? Because I got to tell
Absolutely.
you something, the underlying current in my life until it was 2004. Well, no, I take that back. 2006, I had my first child and I got elected as a judge that same year. And it
Yeah.
was like, Mike, it was like the Lord just slapped me in the face and said, Frank, it's not about you anymore.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And
Well, both of those positions, that's like immediately if, for anybody who has kids, man, it is completely, they are, when you have a complete mental shift, you are living for somebody else. Well, then additionally, what, and obviously I've never been a judge, but I have to think like most people that are judges are there because they want to make an positive impact on people. They want to help steer people to the right side of things and so forth. So yeah, I can just imagine, man. That's like wake up.
yeah,
um,
no, absolutely. That was huge for me. So, really, in terms of working from the inside out, it's I use this expression all the time. Train your brain. We got to train ourselves. And one of the things you'll see if you look at the back cover of my book, I talk about learning to master your greatest resource. What is our greatest resource? In my mind, there's nothing that competes with this. Our greatest
okay.
resource is our attention. And what we
Mm,
put our attention on is going to be reflected on the kind of life that we have. And all these things and the activities that I have in the book and everything is geared to getting to the point of recognizing that we really need to get outside of ourselves and work to do something for others. That's where the beauty of living is. We're meant to
absolutely.
be social beings.
Well, and I've heard it said like Tony Robbins, and you'd probably be familiar with the statement when you're talking about attention. He has a statement I've heard him say many, many times: where focus goes, energy flows.
Yes,
Wherever
yes.
your attention is given, whatever you're focused on. And I always have thought back, and I've trained sales teams like this, where we say where focus goes, energy flows. Like I can remember back to learning to ride a bike, right? You learning to ride a bike and learning to ride a bike. And I think I've shared this analogy some before on the show. But when you start speaking to yourself, right? You start and most people learn to ride a bike 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever that age time frame is. And the one thing, where do they always tell you to look? Like they tell you to like watch where you're going, look straight ahead, watch where you're going. The moment you start to look at the mailbox and you go, oh, I don't want to hit the mailbox. I don't want to hit the mailbox. You end up steering towards the mailbox, and here I go, right? So where your focus goes, whatever your attention is on, the way I'm hearing you say it, whatever your attention is on, you're going to naturally gravitate towards that. You're going to start to find solutions. You're going to start seeing things differently, and that is super powerful. Super powerful.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And um the other thing I like to remind people, so another thing, and I came across, research, I got to tell you, writing this book, it was great because, of course, in the age of the internet, all you got
Sure.
to do is Google different things, right?
Sure.
And you don't have to go to the library, which when I grew up, that was the only way you could get this
Yeah.
information. But I tell people, there's an ultimate skill. There is a skill, and it is a skill that will make you better at everything that you do. And people say, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And the skill is happiness. Happiness and being happy and relaxed. If you are happy and relaxed, I guarantee you're going to be better at everything that you do. And
Absolutely.
people think that happiness, you know, you either have it or you don't, or it's circumstances or this or that. That's garbage. That's where training your mind really comes in. Happiness is it is a skill, you know, and I've gotten better and better at it. Even in the last week, I feel like I've upped my game because it's like I've gotten more present to reminding myself of the things that I have to be grateful for. Because gratitude is a doorway to happiness. I mean, the more you're thinking about how grateful you are for this or that or your parents or your salary or whatever it is, the
Right.
more that you're going to the happier you're going to be.
I love it. And on that note, we're coming to the tail end. So I would love to, I'm going to preload you with the question if there's any kind of final thoughts while I'm sharing this with our audience. So you can be thinking of some final thoughts, or if there's something that we just didn't quite get to. A couple reminders for everybody. I would encourage you, as we're coming to the tail end, connect on LinkedIn with Judge Frank Szymanski. It's SZYMANSKI. Also, I would encourage you, go to his website, judgefrank.com. Certainly, you can pick up his book, Identity Design, at any place that books are sold. You know, online, probably in person too. If you're a Barnes and Noble person, I imagine they either have that or can order it for you. So I would definitely check those out. And as we come to the tail end, so much good information. I mean, we've gone down some different paths here, talking about positive mentors, what things to approach from that. Or how to approach finding a positive mentor, things that empower us, don't empower us, the power of attention, the power of gratitude, and that being a doorway to happiness, like as you're coming up here at the tail end. I will remind everybody, part of the reason to get his book is that 760 Mad Minute plan for you to be able to start transforming your mind, start adjusting your mind and doing that with some consistency. So, Frank, any final thoughts to take us out this afternoon?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks. This has been great. I've really enjoyed the exchange, Mike. Every
Absolutely,
time
me
I
too.
every time I get a chance to talk about this, it reinforces it for me because, you know, we get caught up, you know, our kids are doing this or that, or, you know, this happened, whatever. So I really want to, you know, thank you and acknowledge you for this work because it's great. And I'm just going to go back and close it by talking about music for a minute because
Yes.
it's such a deep part of me. So the original act that I have songs out on, it's called We Are the Modern Clouds. And if you want to see that's the website is themodernclouds.net, just
Okay.
themodernclouds.net. And I have a couple of songs. I write songs that in which I embed messages of well, I guess I'll say inspiration, hopefully,
Sure.
hopefully.
Absolutely.
So I have a song called "To Find the Blue," which is, you know, it starts out with the, you know, sometimes in a dark affair, you know, it start, and then in the chorus it goes to this transition. There you are, then to find the blue. I mean, there really is, you know, some blue skies for all of us.
Sure.
We just need to look for them. I have another one called "When the Dreams Invade," and I love this because the idea of that song is that um, when we really get obsessed with what's really important for us, our dreams, when we really connect with them, it's like everything else fades into the background, and it's a beautiful
For
place to
sure.
be. It's a beautiful place to be. And I invite people to be creative. Some of the research that I talk about when I do my presentations are the National Science Foundation did research that says 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So in
Yep.
other words, we're just running a negative tape loop all day long unless we learn to train our brain and we engage ourselves in creative and generous activities, though, and thankful activity. Those are
Yes.
things that will pull us right out of that. So, so there's that. As I say, they can find me. Thank you again. They can find me at judgefrank.com.
Yep.
My artist name as a vocalist is Franklin Sane, Franklin, and then the last Sane. And that's a kind of a Bowie word pun because he had an album titled Aladdin Sane. So my name was Frank. I said, well, that means I can be Franklin Sane. So
Sure.
that's franklinsane.com. Hey, have really enjoyed it. God bless to our listeners, and really hope that you guys will centralize, will formulate a one sentence definition that for yourselves, so that you can measure everything that you're worried about or working on or whatever, and think about, does it really matter to who you are or not? Or is it one of these things that, well, society tells you you should do this or that?
So then I do it.
Society has lots of things that we don't really need to follow, right?
That's for sure. That's for
So,
sure. So a huge shout out. Thank you to Frank Szymanski, Franklin Sane. If you would hang out in the wings for a minute, I'm going to go ahead and take us out. Okay.
yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to a close to another episode of the Leadership Toolkit with my new friend, Frank Szymanski. Awesome conversation with Judge Frank here. And I encourage you, check out his book, man. He's just given us two little insights into activities and things that he shares there. And I know he said this very humbly, like, oh, hey, I hope people get as much out of it reading it as he did writing it. I'm confident that that would be the case. So I would encourage you, connect with Frank on LinkedIn, connect with Judge Frank at judgefrank.com. Check out all of the things that he has in the works. Here's one other thing, and this is always an ask here at the Leadership Toolkit. One of the ways that this show continues to grow, please throw some thumbs up on it. Go to Spotify or Apple iTunes or whatever your favorite podcast platform is and subscribe. And if you've enjoyed the show, leave us a positive review. But most importantly, even more importantly than that, to me, one of the reasons I continue to do this is because I love people. I want to impact people. I want to see them grow. If you know somebody that would benefit from listening to Judge Frank today, share this show with them. Be specific and be deliberate in sharing the show with them so that they have an opportunity to learn and grow. Maybe it's coming up with their one sentence definition. Maybe it's listening and hearing that they need to lead themselves better. Maybe it's them getting a few characteristics and going to find a positive mentor. But if you can impact somebody by sending a copy of the show to them, send it. And then I will see you next Wednesday. And until then, everybody, stay great. We'll talk soon, everyone.